Yeah, there it
Fuck
is.
Christopher Columbus, man.
I mean,
Just that's not a good way to start a show that you're worried about trying to monetize. Listen, this is the root of all of these problems. Is just the human lust for greed and power. And I have a feeling that we're going to be talking about just human beings' insatiable thirst for power and greed. So really, I can think of no better way to buck the hundreds of years of the unquenchable thirst for greed and power than to take the YouTube monetization for this episode, throw it in the garbage. Christopher Columbus, fuck him. Fuck him, fuck him, fuck him. Multiple F-bombs. Let's just go. Literally, literally nothing on this day of all days. Let's just lay it out. Let's make it plain. We don't need the monetization for this one. We can do it for the people once in a while. That's right.
Right. That's right.
So how's everybody doing? What's up, everybody?
I mean, I just wanted to say, I was saying this before the show, but I think even in like the scope of bad American holidays, this one sucks so much. This is like maybe the worst of them all. This is like, we might as well just have a Hitler Day, right? Like, come on, people. Like, what is even the justification?
If you start tearing down the statues of Columbus, you'll have to tear down the statues of everybody who murdered a lot of people. You'll have to tear down the statues of Washington. You'll have to tear down the statues of Jefferson. You'll have to blow off Mount Rushmore. And these things are central to America. You can't just get rid of these things. They are what we are. And Kennedy, I'm surprised that you don't know that. Yeah, fuck them too. Absolutely. So
can we replace Mount Rushmore's heads with problematic leftists?
Yes. Well, Rachel, you live near Stone Mountain, and we've been trying to replace them with outcasts for the last 15, 20 years. So, and by the way, you're on mute. Also, who do we want to get on Mount Rushmore? Maybe the four of us can just be on Mount Rushmore.
Is it a rap?
Maybe we can.
Oh, then okay, we got to put Biggie there.
Oh,
if we talking rap.
Kennedy, who?
Ooh.
Well, if we're talking like Stone Mountain or Mount Rushmore.
Well, Kennedy,
Mount
who's
Rushmore.
on your hip hop Mount Rushmore?
Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. So Tony's adding Biggie. I'm gonna go with. It's gotta be Thugger for me. Young Thug. Put him up there.
Young Thug. Really? All right. Fine.
Right.
Rachel, who are you putting on your hip hop Mount Rushmore?
I'm not.
Okay.
I'll do hip hop Stone Mountain because that one belongs to me. Hip hop Stone Mountain would be Killer Mike, Outkast, and I'm trying to think like specifically Atlanta people. JID, that's mine.
Okay. That's a good choice. I think Jay-Z should be somewhere on these mountains.
Oh no!
Definitely, you got to.
Look,
I get it.
I mean,
Brad and I are at real odds today.
that's almost like not putting in Tupac too. You have to. I'll go further back though. Rakim, anybody?
Yes.
Yeah, don't sweat the technique. Absolutely. Please. That's classic verse.
Rugged and rough. That's how I do it.
The Punisher. lots of classic tracks from Rakim. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
God, Rakim.
Yeah. So obviously,
can we put Lib on there?
Which Lib? Warren?
Talib.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. Hey,
I always forget you don't watch People's Party.
Yeah. Okay. So moving this along. I mean, look, obviously, we if given our choice, we would simply return the mountain to its natural state before it had been carved up in violation of a treaty that would be like really cool. But we've got to go back into history. Before we go back into history, though, how is everybody like living this weekend? How are you celebrating this historic day?
Well, actually, tomorrow is my kid's birthday, so like, fuck Christopher Columbus 2 times. I'm getting ready for my kid's birthday.
If your kid gets famous enough, she can have her own holiday. Have y'all talked about that?
No.
we gotta get her famous enough.
She's already
my
got
entire relationship with fame.
Kennedy, have you
people.
So I live in New Mexico, so we renamed it statewide Indigenous Peoples Day a couple of years ago. So there will be no weird shit going around my city. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, there will also be nothing going on, period. So yeah, I don't plan to do much except say fuck Columbus quietly under my breath every 30 minutes all day.
Tony, what's up? I guess you should both talk about what you're doing today and also introduce yourself, because like we know you, but no one else that's in our audience.
All right. Well, I'm Tony, last name Batashon. I am Leslie's husband and joined on to this podcast. And as far as Columbus is concerned, fuck him a couple times. No Vaseline, just straight raw dog. And it's interesting when you start talking about history, and the first thing that everybody wants to remember is Columbus. And it's like, wait, bro, there was so much more before him. And no one's even thinking about that. Come on. And then you understand what this man really incited throughout these different places, these different cities, islands, these civilizations that got crushed because of him. Like, it gets deep. And, you need more than just galoshes to walk through all that shit. But, so. But yeah, that's just me in a nutshell. I work as a mailman, carrier, whatever you want to call it. But I hear a lot of stuff about these ballots and how they're gonna go missing. No, it's not. It's not that funny. It's not even that close. But anyway, I know that the message they got to give out to the nation, has to be this so-called issue, but. No, it's not even that close as far as those ballots are concerned. But I digress,
Well, how's generally speaking morale doing at the post office right now? Like, postal workers are comrades. Like, we have y'all's back, but like, how are you?
I'd say the morale is positive, and I mean, there's many people who are taking those, shots daily. Customer service clerks who have to deal with customers every day, and there's some of them that are so skeptical and want to, and I hear it from time to time too. Some customers come up to me and say, "Hey, I mean, is everything gonna be all right with y'all?" And I'm like, I look at them like, "Are you serious? This is an institution. I mean, the post office has been around for eons. I don't see it going to the point of being ever so negative and affecting this election, like they say. But some people use fear mongering as a tool, and you can see that. So
yeah, I mean, I would say that's a narrative to suit their means, right? I mean,
exactly.
This is like manufactured consent, something that we talk about a lot. They start creating this idea and selling it to you without any proof other than the fact that they just keep selling it to you over and over again.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And for most people, the more you hear it, the more you think of it as in a negative impact, and you don't think about the carriers that are going out of their way to get Miss Jenkins her medicine, knowing that she needs her medicine and she's not home, but will go out of their way to make sure that medicine gets to that person. Or me personally, I've been there where I help customers with stamps or whatever the case may be, because these people are us. You know, we're going to try to help you out as much as we can, and we can't help what the negative light that's going to come, you know, in this period of time, because I know for certain if we weren't dealing with an election right now, we wouldn't be even talking about it. There's no way. But since we gotta put instill that fear in people, here it is, and it just, you know. So I just, you know, put my best foot forward, stay positive, and that's it. That's it. As far as, you know, that matter of life is concerned, it's just a regular day to day.
Yeah.
Sort of the the banality of the evil of the system, right? So we're just sort of trudging along. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Questions that people have, like, is the post office going to be okay? And even though the answer is yes, the fact that the question is there is like, oh God, like
exactly. And I talked to some senior co-workers, and they pretty much, you know, put some fears for myself at rest, at ease, you know, because same thing was going on when we were talking about it in 2001 and 2011. There was issues too. So finances and business is always going to be ups. There's always going to be downs, and you just have to find your way to work through it. And, you know, so it's not bad. You know, I look around and I see a lot of people who don't have jobs, who are going through it on a very hard level economically right now. And for me, like, example, why are you playing with people's stimulus right now? Like, oh, we're going to use that. We're going to hold that against y'all. Yeah, after the election, we're going to get everything together. What? There's people who are right now sitting on, you know, foreclosures or, you know, evictions and things of that nature, who need that money, who need that stimulus. You know, thankful for me that, you know, me and my wife did everything we could financially to get us set. But, you know, some people don't have that luxury. And I feel bad for them because there's a government that's playing with them right now, toying with them. So,
yeah.
And to what end, right? Like, it's
right.
Strictly symbolic infighting.
Exactly.
People
Symbolic.
collectively don't care if we live or die.
Yeah. So, but yeah.
So let's bring it back around to something that you touched on when you started talking, Tony, which was, you mentioned the way things were before Columbus got here. And I figure if we're going to talk a little bit about, you know, where you're from and the history of colonialism and things like that, maybe we should talk a little bit about what were the Americas like before we got here? Or you know, what was the history? And it's really hard even to get this information sometimes, because, like, for instance, go to the Wikipedia page about Haiti right now, anybody who's watching this, and look at the section that's pre-Columbus. It's this tiny little paragraph, and then it's like, oh, but actually there's another page that's more about this, and you're like, oh, okay, well, it gets its own page. That's better, right? No, you go click on that page, and it's just like a directory of useless information. There's no actual meaningful information about the society of Haiti before Columbus's arrival or anything. So Tony, I want to have you start. What was Haiti like before Columbus got there?
Okay. Well, first and foremost, there was everybody, we call them Indians. These were different people who came from South America. They were dealing with a lot of issues with other clans. Basically, if I'm right, the names was the Arawaks. Arawaks was former Tainos. I remember hearing about Tainos with my Puerto Rican friends and whatnot. So notable. Come to find out, basically, you have a lot of those same people who were indigenous to those islands. So you have the Arawaks, which are part of the Tainos. They were dealing with another crew, we'll call them the Caribs, who were like cannibals, who were like literally like, we're going to raid you. We're going to take whatever we can. And yeah, if we feel like eating part of your leg, that's what we're going to do. So that's what, that's what kind of pushed those groups to be like, yo, we got to get the hell up out of here. That's how you found them in Hispaniola. That's how you found them in Cuba. That's how you found them in those Antilles and those islands. And come to find out, Haiti itself was broken down to like 5 different groups. 5 different caciques were the ones who were like kings. And if you think of 5 boroughs in New York, it's kind of the same deal. The one part that I really liked about them is, they have 5 kings, but they didn't do it on like a male predominant, type of deal. So they'd have 4 kings, but they also have a queen, or they'll have 2 queens and then 3 kings. That's how they did their, group type of mentality. And when it came down to it, those same people, those same people had to deal with Columbus when he first came. Now, when he first came, it was more of a pleasant type of atmosphere for them because they're not looking to fight, they're not looking to argue, they're not looking. They just see these people coming to their island. Famously,
like fascination, I assume.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, holy crap, you're so different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then
and initially also Columbus and some of the other quote unquote explorers frequently, presented their nature as being, we wanted to set up trade.
Right.
What society says no to that when a new society shows up and says we want to trade and is presenting valuable goods and
Yeah. Well, I'm like completely like it's not even just like that trade means like wealth, right? Trade means new technology, it means new foods. It's like it's this huge opening of a world, when you develop trade between areas that aren't connected already. And we take it for granted now because like the internet, but like it was like just a complete like world-changing event to like find these kinds of connections.
Right. And even at the first introduction of it all, Columbus ended up shipwrecking. He had the 3, I'm forgetting the names right now, but the one that really shipwrecked was the Santa Maria, I want to say.
Yeah, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Yep.
Right. So when that shipwrecked, the Tainos actually went to the ship and helped them get everything off that they could, like help them save, blah, blah, blah. And that's when Columbus kind of peaked game, was like, yo, these people really like us, without even knowing us. And then he started noticing that they had jewelry and gold. And he's like, oh, shit, well, I might be able to get something out of these people without even trying. And that's when they started, having some type of building relationship type stuff. And it worked out for both in the favor and at the very beginning. Like, oh, well, we can learn, like you said, technology and new things from the Spaniards, and they can learn from us, whatever the case may be. Then Columbus was like, well, I'm going to send a couple people back and get some more of y'all over here so we can just run shot. And there's a famous line where he basically said that with little to no help, just holding a sword, we can easily manipulate thousands of these people. So that was the introduction of Columbus to the Americas, and it just came into ruin from there.
Columbus was a Spaniard, but generally when we talk about Haiti, we think about the French influence on the island. So what was there a race between the Spanish and the French to colonize that particular country? And what was that period like?
Well, the Spanish kind of started out running shop or whatever the case may be. You started having this route in between Haiti and I'm saying Jamaica, Cuba, and that was being used as a like channeling hub. And through there, that's how you started to have the French influence as well. English was already in Jamaica. So now you have all these people that's kind of vying for that spot. And as far as the French side of it, there was a lot of French who came from France, of course. And it just they just always seem to butt heads. That's the best way to put it. I'm kind of getting lost in my information. I'm sorry about that, but more or less when you had the Spanish come in, the Spanish kind of got things going, and it wasn't until you had a Spanish priest who kind of saw that yes, we could use the place, but we don't have the good manpower. We don't have enough of the manpower. And with that, that's when the Africans was introduced. Funny enough about this priest, his name is Lacasas. Lacasas came into Hispaniola in 1952, and 1502. All right, apologize. That's when he came in and was pretty much seeing like the people themselves and saying, well, we can use the Indians. Yeah, that's fine. But we need some other source. And that's when he started having Africans being brought into Haiti.
So the sort of trafficking of slaves and Africans to Haiti was started by Spain, not by France. Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Pretty much. And from there was always a group that was trying to fight back. There was always Maroons, and even to the point where other people had to be sent in. And there was another general from Spain, Nicolas de Ovando, and he was sent in to kind of be like Pontius Pilate type, just basically wreck shop and get everybody in order. And that went on for a while, but it was still hard for them to get certain kings to bow down. So they started using ruse tactics, basically saying, hey, well, we've been fighting for so long right here on this mountain and you're so dug in. Well, we'll just have some type of treaty. We'll give you some land here and we'll just leave you alone. The only thing that would happen is once you would meet up with these Spaniards or these so-called governors, kings or whatnot, they would use that moment to ambush you. They did that famously to like 3 or 4 of the caciques that were still trying to hold down and do some type of rebellion. And
I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but didn't they do that to Toussaint too?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's that history repeating itself. People getting ambushed and being very deceitful, and you're trying to just be a part of something and hold down your family, your communities, or whatnot.
Yeah, for sure.
That population, I don't know where you're going, Kennedy. That population of imported slaves ended up being like a huge chunk of the population, right? Like that slave trade very quickly exploded on that island.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, basically, there's some counts that say there was at least 500,000 Indians at the time. With these new viruses coming in, these plagues or whatnot, it decimated the Indians close to like 50,000. And even with those 50,000 doing the labor, it was like, oh no, we need something else. And that's when you had Africans coming by the boatloads or truckloads being brought in. And yeah, it was something to behold. After a while, you started having these revolutions that would happen just because of the situation. You have so many of these Africans and they're trying to just be, but of course they can't. They're enslavements. And what would happen was some of these Africans that they were bringing used to be warriors, used to be fighters themselves. So they started getting these bands together. They started getting these groups together and fighting on a small guerrilla warfare type tactics and trying to hold ground. Now that big strait that I was talking about in between the islands, that became an issue too, because you would have Marooners, you'd have pirators who would wait for people to come in with their cargo going back to England or going back to Spain or France, and they would hit them and ambush them right there. So that's how you started having different countries actually form forces together to beat down these revolts. You actually had England, who had a part, of course, in Jamaica, and they got up with the French and said, listen, let's get together, because they also knew that Haiti was fairly lucrative. Very big in plantation of coffee, different sugars, of course, sugar cane.
And sugar, yeah, definitely.
So the Haiti that we know now, compared to what it was before, was just like a major economic hub that most European countries wanted some type of part of.
Yeah.
One of the things that blows my mind the most, or is at least the most interesting, is that when you have such a large slave population, you have to like find a way to control a population that large. And in the same way that America kind of has like a caste system of minorities that become like honorarily white when need be politically, like Haiti has, like, through inbreeding and stuff like that, like they had like a large mulatto class that was like politically recognized and had certain freedoms and stuff, and they had their own politics of being in the middle of the slave class and the white class.
Yeah, definitely. And you started noticing that with Toussaint Louverture. He had two generals that was under him, famously, Dessalines as well as Rigaud. And Rigaud was the light-skinned brother. So he was the dude that was kind of representing the light-skinned class, or whatever you want to call it, the mulattoes. And you had Dessalines, who's famously known to represent the Africans. And I know that I couldn't live in those days because that was
well, it's a big mess, and that's actually part of why you saw when the revolution came, that the revolution, a lot of people think of the Haitian Revolution as purely along racial lines, and it wasn't as much because there was this weird dynamic created by having this class in the middle that was more divided. So you ended up with like some people, like a small number of white people fighting for the revolution, a small number of Black Haitians fighting against the revolution, because there's this, like I say, there's this weird political situation going on with race politics.
Some class interests, though.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, yeah. There's always so much more to these conflicts than the sort of broad strokes, you know? It's
because those white mercenaries that were brought in from overseas, they had like their own revolution that they were fighting at the same time in their own home country. So when like things started popping off, they were like, well, why are we siding with the same group of people that like we're basically fighting at home, instead of siding with the group of people that are fighting against those people? And a lot of them defected and like still have roots in Haiti today.
Right. I mean, because you got to remember that the French Revolution and the Haitian Revolution are very close together. So these same people who are the oppressors are going through their own political awakening, and some of them are going, maybe I don't like which side I'm on.
You know, that's a great point. Reason being is you had Toussaint Louverture, who's known as, you know, basically the father of independence, Haitian independence. There was a time where he was working for the Spaniards, and he was working for the Spaniards against the French. Then, while you're having that revolution in France, the monarchy is starting to stir in France, and you have Napoleon Bonaparte, who's now trying to be the monarch and beating down the Republic. So basically, that whole change right there sends another change into Haiti, where they're like, yo, we got to get Haiti back. There has to be a way. We got to get this money back. So he sends someone to France named Rochebot. I don't want to say Chainbow. But
one of history's worst people. You thought Columbus was bad.
Well, Columbus is actually still bad, but this guy
too.
too.
Said a mouthful. So my man pretty much goes to Haiti, and he changes it up, and he says basically, listen, at this point, we're going to have our revolution, and we want the French side to hold down this whole entire island, and we are going to get to the point where we abolish slavery. So what does Toussaint Louverture do? Oh, shoot, y'all taking back the whole country and you want to abolish? Well, I'm going to go on that side. So he brought him and most of his generals, which include Dessalines and Rigaud, to the French side now. So now they're going back on the side that they used to hold. And, now they're like, okay, well, this is ours now. We're representing the French. And they said that they were so seasoned at that time that basically they just walked in to that part of at that point you had Saint Domingue, which was the French side, and you had Spanish side, which was Santo Domingo. They literally just walked into the palace of Santo Domingo, and they're like, okay, here, just take the keys because we know what you guys are capable of. And Haiti becomes, the whole entire island of Hispaniola at that time and under French rule. Even in that French rule, though, you have Toussaint Louverture who has his mind going and is like, man, we're all these black people, brown people. We need to be governed only by brown and black people. So it gets to a point where he gets into power, and now he's starting to push all these French people away. Like Napoleon's sending all these different people, and he's like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, y'all stay for a couple months. Y'all ain't got to go home. But y'all gotta get the fuck out of here. Like it's to that point. And later on in history, after Toussaint Louverture gets done up by the French, Dessalines, as a mark of the independence, goes on to what everybody considers a genocide. Pretty much sent all the people who wanted to leave, as far as white males, and if you left, you left. If you stayed, that night it was over. Like, tactics to the point of using only knives, so there was no gunfire, so the others could not escape. That type of tactics. Like, this was pretty much as cruel as you can get, and that's why you have some people who hold Dessalines as a tyrant because of it. But back to what I was saying, though. You have Toussaint who's sending all these people away, to the point where you have Napoleon Bonaparte making his Declaration of Independence, or well, should I say his Constitution, but leaves Haiti out of it. So Toussaint is like, all right, well, you're going to leave us out of it, but I'm going to make my own, and I'm going to send it to you. So he sends it to Napoleon Bonaparte, and now Napoleon Bonaparte uses that to say, yo, these Negroes are out of their mind. There's no way that they're just going to hold it down like that. And then you have the big fight, the big revolution that everyone knows. So, just to add a couple points on that, January 1st is the day, 1804, where it was finally proclaimed an Independence Day. Famously, we have a squash soup every year because of it. Back then, you weren't able to have any of those ingredients, any of those accoutrements or whatnot that was saved for the elite of the white men and white women. So that's why we have that soup every year as a sign of good luck, good fortune, and that's it. That's that's where that soup comes from. If anybody asks, that soup. But
you mentioned the Maroons a couple of times.
Right.
I wanted to ask a little bit more about your thoughts on that group, because I think it's fair to say that they were somewhat instrumental in sort of providing an ongoing resistance that made revolution in Haiti possible earlier than other places, and also maybe in a way that it wasn't in other places. But also, I'm kind of curious if you had any thoughts about what made the Maroons so successful compared to like other similar types of resistance movements? Because they really seem to kind of hold their own in terms of like staying organized and not ever being completely crushed, no matter how hard the Spanish or later the French tried.
Well, I mean, I'd say it's 2 points on that. For one, the geographical part of it. Haiti was called Haiti mostly because of its mountainous ridges. It's actually comes from the Earwax, and again, it means mountainous. So if you know how to use the landscape to your advantage, I hate to put it this way, but Rambo First Blood, anybody?
Yeah, no, having a really
Yeah,
challenging
right.
landscape and knowing it much better than the person that's trying to oppress you has historically proven to be very effective. So that makes sense.
Right. And then on top of that, you had the indigenous people who were actually known throughout history for their innovations on the land. Canoe comes from them. Um, and how laid back they were, hammock comes from them. So figure that out. They was chilling on the hammock in a canoe and decided to come on in. No, but them knowing their way around boats and knowing their way around rivers and things of that nature, and passing that on to the other people who are now bigger and stronger, and at the same time have that same mentality as you, that we're going to survive. Like, they passed on that knowledge through the generations. Now you have better marooners. Now you have better pirates, and they understand what they're doing at this point. I think before, as just the indigenous people, you kind of like, it was kind of like shock and awe. You're like, oh my goodness, all these people, they have all this weaponry. There's even a story of somebody, some Indian was touching a sword and cut himself because he doesn't really know the weapon. And with that lack of knowledge, that's one thing. But then you insert a whole group of people who understand their ways more and have an understanding of how to fight or how to get at these people. And that's how you have the Marooners really take over that whole channel, to the point where other countries have to form together just to even beat them. So they
And
also,
that collusion,
Mhm.
yeah, that collusion between other countries, I mean, that's continued basically since Haiti declared independence.
Right.
Like, there has
Yeah.
not really been a period in Haitian history where they have not been under financial duress that's been imposed on them through France, Spain, the United States. Like, the entire history of Haiti is just like these other countries trying to recolonize them, basically, to varying degrees.
Yeah. And I mean, there's actually, I don't remember the name of this individual, but basically under his rule and leadership, trying to get away from France altogether. This happened in the 1800s, if not even the 1900s. Basically, he set up a treaty to pay France back for what has happened with the colonials that were lost, the colonies, everything of that nature. The only thing is, it was like damn near 80% of the money that was being made in Haiti at the time. So it's like getting paid $100 and you give 80 directly to someone else, and doing that for years, even to this day.
Yeah.
So
I don't remember exactly who that was, but I believe that the country split in half. And so there was a more democratic Haiti in the south, and there was a more authoritarian Haiti in the north. And there was a kingdom and a republic, basically.
Right.
And the kingdom of Haiti had more of a strict production-oriented society, basically. And they basically had problems staying afloat because people like scraped under that and thought it was too similar to the situation they had been trying to leave. And not that the South was doing much better, because without that authoritarianism, the power was so centralized in the hands of the people that were doing the farming and doing the labor, that like there basically wasn't a national government at all, and it wasn't solvent. So it wasn't great on either side of the country, basically.
Right.
But also that Southern government wasn't really recognized either. Like the Kingdom of Haiti could like trade with Europe. The Republic of Haiti could get screwed in a trade with Europe, maybe occasionally. And that was about it. Like, it was kind of, so there was a lot of like political pressure to sort of maintain, the side of this that was more in line with what these authoritarian capitalist interests wanted. And I think it's worth noting, when we talk about like just the ways that this was resisted and the ways that France have like continued to like keep fingers on Haiti, that France is one of Europe's best economies even now. But especially like before the Haitian Revolution was basically the pinnacle of Europe's economy in like a moment in time. And that like 40% of that was coming from Haiti. 40% of their that fabulous economy was based off the exploitation of Haiti. So of course, they have not been able to let that go. And this is just like one of those perfect examples in my mind of like, let's look at these countries that have great economies and are supposedly very great and doing very well. What's underlying that? It's almost always that they're still fucking doing colonialism.
Yeah, absolutely. They it's something else.
I would love, like, I feel like the modern history of Haiti with just like Papa Doc and even pre-Papa Doc and Papa Doc and Baby Doc and all that whole period. I would love if you want to come back at a later time and just talk about like the last 100 years, just because I feel like that situation deserves its own discussion.
And
we can't cram that into the last 10 minutes. That would be
we don't. I don't want to be like, oh, and by the way, like high school history books. You know how they cram everything after World War II into like 1 week after the end of the. Oh yeah, and then modern days happened, and a lot of stuff happened.
Yeah, so, I mean, or this is like the Wikipedia article I fucking mentioned at the start of this, where 3,000 years minimum by the most conservative estimates of when people arrived on those islands of history is just like, boop. And then the Spanish show up and it's like, here's, 100 years gets 3 paragraphs. The next 100 years gets 5 paragraphs. Like, what?
What for people who like aren't aware of Haitian history, and we really wanted to have Christine on the show, I think that would have been cool too. What are misconceptions that you think people should revisit, or if there are books or places you want people to go to that you think are good places to read and learn more? How do you suggest people get educated on these things?
Okay, it's a good question. I actually picked up this guy on YouTube, and what he's done is basically him and his friend who's stationed in Haiti. His friend is doing a nonprofit basketball for youth, trying to use that as a mentorship program in Haiti right now, and he himself. Basically started doing books concerning Haiti and their history, into even articles, literature, art, the whole nine. And they did I wouldn't say a cram session, but they did a couple classes, basically Haiti History 101, I want to say it's called. Haiti History 101. And I tell you, there's some stuff that they go through that I'm like, man, I didn't wait. This happened too? There's no and they again, what I like about them is they're going all the way back to the Tainos. They're showing you, I'm saying calligraphy, but stuff that's on the walls and stuff like that, and they're found there in Haiti. all the time. But again, all we start at is at 1492. We start at the beginning with comments. Nah.
Yeah.
And another thing, just on the Haitian side of things, not all Haitians believe and practice fucking voodoo. Get the fuck out of my face with that. I believe in what I believe in. You believe in what you believe in. Fuck out of here, okay? And on a spiritual level, because of the stories that I've heard, I do believe there is the supernatural out there. But just like in the same context as voodoo, there's going to be a bad magic, a black magic. There's always going to be a white magic as well. So don't interpret everything that you hear as, it's already got negative connotation because it has to do with supernatural and Haiti. It's all voodoo and chickens and that dude from James Bond. It was fucking first time that you ever saw a Haitian guy on TV. Get the fuck out of here.
Oh my god, that dude! I know which dude you're talking about.
Yes, you know which dude I'm talking about. You know which one I'm talking about.
That dude, Baron Samedi and Azalea Banks have just done so much damage to the culture collectively. They need to get it. They need to get it together. Tony, thank you for coming on the show for like an intro, a little historical intro, and hopefully you can come back in like a week or two, and let's talk about these last 100 years because they've been messed up too.
Hey, that's fun.
Yeah.
Hopefully I get over my nerves and shit. Do a better job next time. Anyway,
you did a hell of a job. You did better than. I mean, we're all amateurs. We're all just down here kicking it. So it's all a good time.
Hey man, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Last word. Well, never mind. I was gonna say, hey, any last words? But I feel like the Chiron really nailed it down. So thank you for watching.
Hey, I'll say one thing real quick.
No, right now.
You're talking about things that we might do today. Something that I'm going to probably do today is reread a little bit of one of my favorite history books, 1491. And I recommend everybody grab themselves a copy of that. If you just kind of want to start understanding a little more of like what was happening in the Americas before the Spanish got here and not just have 3 lines on Wikipedia that are like, there was something, I guess.
Yeah. And if you ever want to really, different read, my wife's book right there.
I love it. I love that you worked in the plug. We plug it every time she comes on.
Love you.
I know.
Better know I love you.
Yeah, she's probably watching. She'll be like, you didn't plug my book.
Right? Getting them for weeks.
Right here. 10 out of 10 husbanding.
Nah.
All right, well, let's have one last, everybody, on the count of 3. Fuck Columbus. 3, 2, 1.
Fuck
Columbus.